Greetings, my loyal subjects. Welcome to the latest in a long line of viewer variants videos. In this series, in case you're unfamiliar with it, I take weapon builds suggested by you, the viewers, and test them out in Core Domination, Ground War, and Warzone. I rate them in each section before finally giving them a rating at the end. Speaking of ratings, here's my fairly unique ratings chart. It's not a typical pass or fail system, so take a second to look it over or screenshot it for later. In today's video, we've got another build suggested by Kacbor, someone whose name I mispronounced last time I did a video for them. In this suggestion, we have what appears to be the typical long-range AMAX build, but with enough ADS boosting attachments to hopefully keep it snappy, much like the last three Kacbor suggested builds. So before I get into this, I'd like to remind everyone that Battlefield 2042 is coming out in the nearish future, and that I will probably almost exclusively be covering that when it launches. If more suggestions are made for viewer variants here, I will still get to them, however. So for now, let's get into what makes this AMAX tick. For Kacbor's CR-56 AMAX build, we have what he calls the Ace. The Ace starts off in the barrel section with the XRK Zodiac barrel for boosted damage range and recoil control at the cost of movement and ADS speed. Next, we apply the TAC laser for greatly boosted ADS speed and stability. The CR-56 EXO stock improves our ADS and strafe speed. The stippled grip tape further boosts ADS speed and our sprint to fire speed. And lastly, we have the 45 round magazines for a 50% ammo increase while giving up movement speed. At first glance, this AMAX build is extremely similar to Swoosh JC's AMAX build that I did a while ago. If you want to check that video out, it should be in the top right corner of your screen, as well as a link below in the video description. However, keeping with Kacbor's signature style, this build is far better when it comes to ADS speed. The combination of the TAC laser, EXO stock, and the stippled grip tape all ensure that even with the slow Zodiac barrel and the extended mags, this build doesn't zoom in like an LMG. However, in order to achieve this speed, he acted to sacrifice stealth and extra recoil control. In this situation, when looking at core domination, the Ace is a perfectly acceptable AMAX build. It retains the weapon's high damage while boosting its range, recoil control, and ammo capacity. These are all desirable traits that usually come at the cost of speed, but as I stated before, this build is very snappy. I never had any issue with speed except for a slightly slower than optimal movement speed. For core domination, Kacbor's Ace gets itself a 7 out of 10. I expected this build to perform its best in Ground War. The downsides of the long barrel and the extended mags would surely be less of a detriment here, and all the bonuses from core domination would still apply. This is mostly the case. The issue here actually comes from the ranged engagements. I'm not saying this build is unusable past medium range, but the lack of an optic makes things more challenging when trying to precisely hit distant moving targets. This obviously isn't an LMG or a sniper, so extreme ranges shouldn't be challenged anyway. But I play slower in Ground War, so being able to effectively fight at a distance is still preferred for this mode. If anything, I'd remove the stippled grip tape for perhaps a hollow or a VLK sight. In this mode, sprint out time is less important in general for me. For Ground War, this CR-56 AMAX build earns itself a 6 out of 10. And now we come to my most worrisome section of the video. How does the Ace perform in Warzone? Well, before the hefty nerf the AMAX received a while back, I would have basically had the same suggestions as I did for Ground War. However, after the damage nerf the AMAX received and the fairly heavy TTK increase it got, this build may not be as viable as it normally would be. The recoil would need to be more evened out by a Commando foregrip, and that all-important suppressor is missing. However, making those changes will essentially turn it into the standard run-of-the-mill AMAX that all streamers used to use, and that would be a disgrace. As it stands, I struggled a little bit with this AMAX. It's a tad different than the one I run, and that may have something to do with it. However, as it stands by itself, this build becomes more average than anything when transferred to Warzone, unfortunately. This AMAX racks up a 5 out of 10 for Warzone and Plunder. I was really disappointed in how this class got basically torn apart when introduced to Warzone. The damage done to it by nerfs that are obviously out of our control means that an entirely new AMAX would be needed, which also isn't the point of this video. However, getting away from that negative, the Ace is still very good in both core domination and Ground War, although a sight could be added for the latter. The weapon is extremely snappy and has plenty of bullets for multiple enemies and armor. For a final rating, Kacbor's Ace CR-56 AMAX build gets itself a 6 out of 10. I'd still recommend this build if you're looking for a solid AMAX to try out for all game modes.
Unfortunately though, as bad as this sounds, I do think my suggested builds from my AMAX video are better in all 3 arenas. What do you guys think of this build? Is it a fan favorite and I'm treating it too harshly, or do you think I'm right? If you're on the fence, give my AMAX video a watch. In the top right corner of your screen, there should be a link to it. Watch that, then come back and tell me if you think the Ace is better than either of those builds. I'm honestly very interested to hear what you all think of that. But since time is short, I'd like to say I appreciate your time and attention today. I hope you learned something of value, or were just entertained in general. I've been your host, Doodleman149, and until next time, I will see you later.